Good evening, everyone, and good morning for guests from the west part of the world. Welcome to the webinar on education technology and skill development. This is organized by National Skill Development Corporation. Today's theme is Emerging Edtech Approaches Around the World and Learnings for Skill Development in India. And before handing over to the speakers, let me first introduce to you our first speaker, Mr. Manish Kumar. Mr. Manish Kumar is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of NSDC. Prior to joining NSDC, he worked for the World Bank as a country coordinator and senior institution development economist, Water and Sanitation Program, New Delhi. I would like to welcome all our participants. Our participants include training partners of NSDC, sector skill councils, universities, and NSDC staff. And we have a set of panel with us. And now I'd like to hand over to Mr. Manish Kumar to make the introduction. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Firstly, welcome everybody, and it's a great pleasure to be part of this discussion. EdTech and its application in the context of India and skilling India is very important for us for several reasons. And today we are going to listen from some of the top minds who have been involved in this process. I personally look forward to learning and how we could use EdTech for solving some of the major problems that we have in skilling India. I'll just point out a few so that when the speakers are there and the discussion of the panel is on, then perhaps you could throw some light on from your own experience on these aspects. The first is, I think the scale at which we have to operate. Currently, as NSDC, we skill nearly 5 million people every year. That's a brick and mortar training. But then if you look at the total number of people we have to reach, which is like about 410 million workforce, if you take skilling, upskilling, and reskilling into account, then that means we must have some other methods of reaching out to such a large number of people. Secondly, I think our challenge is also that a large number of women are out of labor force, and how could we get them back into labor force using EdTech as a kind of platform for both teaching and then reaching a person right to their homes, and then perhaps creating employment opportunity that is also possible to be done from home. And that's something which is, as you can see, happening today in today's world. And I think these are the two major challenges that we face. As NSDC, we have tried our best to create platforms. We have also promoted EdTech companies. We currently have seen a surge of nearly 2,500% of people who used to come, who come to our platform of eSkill India and learn online. But I think that's insufficient given our situation, which I mentioned. So I really look forward to a deeper discussion on this issue, and whatever light you can throw from your experience is going to be extremely useful to us. I hand over now to Mr. Raman Roy for his keynote address, given his deep interest in EdTech issues across India, and I think generally he's a well-known tech person in the country. And then, of course, we have an esteemed panel with us to speak on this particular issue. So over to you, Mr. Raman Roy.
Thank you, Manish, and good morning and good afternoon and good evening, depending on what part of the world you're in. I am truly honored and humbled to be asked to moderate the panel, leave alone give a keynote address, because given the repository of knowledge that the panelists are sitting on, both in practice and about the entire concepts, I feel I come between the audience and their vast knowledge. So I will try and minimize that. I will introduce each one of the panelists as they come on to talk, but just to give you a little flavor in alphabetical order, they will not talk in alphabetical order. But in alphabetical order, we have Gerry Hanley, we have Guy Halfteck, we have Michael Curry, and we have Sheila Jagannathan. Before I request the panelists to talk, and I know they have painstakingly put together a few slides to share with you and talk about their learnings, I thought I'll give you a little flavor from my little window on EduTech, as Manish mentioned, and what we are looking at. Today, technological revolution is not only transforming the way we work, but also the way we learn. The reality is we are meeting each other virtually on this and from different parts of the world. In our younger days, as young as 1 year ago, we would have to fly in and sit across the table to have exactly this conversation. The recent disruptions, especially due to COVID-19, saw the transition towards digital learning in unprecedented scale across the world. Technological disruptions, the industry I represent, the digitization and the automation are forcing business to transform how they work. Companies do not always know what skills they will need because new skills are emerging as others are becoming obsolete. And that is the challenge that we have. In this environment, leaders must drive a culture of innovation to bring the workforce through transformation with a focus on employee engagement and career mobility and upskilling. As per IDC, in 1922, organizations are projected to spend nearly $2 trillion in digital transformation. And while we, the IT industry in India, are celebrating that opportunity, that does create a fear of disruption by tech-enabled competitors within the industry. Because of this digital transformation, it will create discomfort within the workforce if it is not appropriately managed. And it requires a comprehensive and collaborative effort to shift the organization's culture. It is not only about training the people, it is about the culture that we are looking to create that will be very different. From my industry, just from India, we employ 4.3 million people in India in the IT outsourcing industry, and we estimate that more than half of these people will need to be reskilled within the next 24 to 36 months. At one point of time, for a meeting with the government where McKinsey was presenting to the government on the 5 trillion economy, and I went to the government as the representative of the industry when I was the chairman of NASSCOM, saying retraining 2.1 million people or reskilling 2.1 million people was a big number. And I'd bring out what the challenges are. When McKinsey presented that to reach the 5 trillion number, India will have to reskill 20 million people. And the sheer scale of what we as a country face in the reskilling, and Manish brought out that challenge, brings out both the opportunity and the challenge. As NASSCOM, we did a report along with Zinov for digital skills and trends and demands. And we see that the demand for digital skills in India is 8 times of what is available today and will rise to 20 times of what is available today by 2024. Enterprises will need to attract and retain digital talent and to create a culture in which employees and co-workers work efficiently with, guess what, with the robos, which does not exist today. And that is a new learning that in itself will have to come in. The workforce will have to reskill itself, not just enhancing their own skills, but learning how to tap on the gig economy for the skill on demand workers. And that is a new world. The skill on demand from the gig worker could be global, could be international, could be without a time zone. And that is what is so fascinating about where we can go tomorrow. Artificial intelligence has the potential to imitate the human brain and makes it a unique aspect of technology that can learn and solve a problem. It includes natural language processing, visual perception, pattern recognition, and decision making. And the process in combination of AI gives enormous potential to multiple disciplines across multiple economic sectors. The global race to fund, develop, and acquire AI technologies and startups is intensifying. And in my opinion, this is just a start. The impact of AI on GDP is predicted to hinge on several factors, including skills, availability of open source data, and technological progress, with some countries expected to gain more than the others. As AI becomes more widely adopted, its basic tool sets and functionality will become available as a commercial service from large platforms. And in my opinion, the examples includes Amazon machine learning services, Google DeepMind and TensorFlow, IBM Watson, and Microsoft Cortana Intelligence Suite, among others. AI can dramatically enhance the way the individuals learn, the people that we are seeking to train, and will help expand access and relevance to the efficiency of education. Let me come closer home for the IT industry. Historically, IT industry where the revenues grew, so did the number of people. And if you analyze the revenue of the industry for the last 5-6 years, you will see that the graph of revenue is growing steeper and the graph for the number of people employed by the industry is not going as steeper. Actually, the jaws are widening. And that shows that the average revenue per head that is coming from AI, 3D printing, blockchain, big data and analytics, cybersecurity, IoT, robotics, immersive media, cloud computing, that is growing dramatically. Talent has become a mission critical priority for India. Gartner predicts that digital skills are in demand across all sectors and within roles that traditionally did not require them earlier. So we are going to see a lot changing. There is a massive need for everyone to develop digital fluency in new age technologies. Skill shortage, we see a tip of the iceberg right now. Skill shortage is omnipresent, and upskilling and skilling is the antidote. That is a big challenge that we all need. The problem is too large to be handled alone. It needs collaboration. It needs collaboration not only between companies that compete with each other, it requires geographic collaborations across the sectors. The government of India has recognized the urgency and created steps on it. The Prime Minister and the IT Ministry have taken steps to initiate what the future will look like. The government has extended its support to IT industry's response to the skilling challenge through NASSCOM's Future Skill Initiative by extending it to the entire nation. Built on solid foundation of future skills, Future Skill Prime has been built with the support of Ministry of Electronics and IT that will open up not just to the IT workforce, but to the entire country as we go forward. Coming together of the government, industry, academia, and content partners is crucial to the future. And I dare say NSDC will play a big role in making that happen. Reskilling India may sound like a mission impossible, but we have to make it possible. Some of my co-panelists today will talk about where we can take it and how we can do. Will that let me allow me to introduce my first co-panelist, Sheila Jagannathan. Sheila is the head of the Open Learning Campus in the World Bank in Washington, D.C. She serves as the organization's focal point on digital learning and issues at the intersection of technology use and education in emerging countries. She is internationally recognized thought leader, advisor, and author, and a forward-thinking senior education leader with over 35 years of experience in leading capacity building, knowledge management, data, social learning, and transformation across public and private organizations. Welcome, Sheila.
Sorry, I will just share my presentation again. Thank you very much, Mr. Rahman, Dr. Rahman, for that introduction, but also the resounding acknowledgement of the future of work and learning. I wanted to start with a quote of Alvin Toffler, actually, who said that it is not the illiterate of the 21st century will not be the one who cannot read or write, but will be the one who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And unlearning old structures and mental models and relearning new skills, whether it be business skills, whether it be technology skills, or whether it be soft skills, is going to be critical in the world we are stepping into, which will include, among everything you said, Dr. Rahman, but also including the bots and the machines and the various types of workers. So my brief presentation will focus on big shifts in the future of work, but how is it shaping learning in the 21st century? I will then highlight a few trends that are not the future, but are here today, happening globally and definitely can happen in India. And I will conclude with a very brief few considerations of what we would need to do to transition from where we are to a truly digital and blended future. So very quickly, want to talk about some of the economic and environmental drivers that are happening that is stressing and making global skilling an imperative for the world to consider. So of course, the fourth industrial revolution is disrupting the future of work on a global scale. And McKinsey, as Mr. Raman had mentioned, estimates that over 50% of the jobs today will be lost to disruptive technology. But in one sense, these jobs are not lost. It really brings new opportunities. So in this context, the whole almost 50% of the workforce needs to be reskilled and upskilled. Next, if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, which have to be met by 2030, it's a global commitment by all, and this requires massively investing in human capital through continuous learning opportunities, ranging from all key stakeholders. Third, I'd like to point out India, among many other emerging countries, needs to, in particular, the youth bulge. And India in particular needs to find about 12 million, find jobs for about 12 million, and who are entering the workforce. And so here, skill building becomes an imperative again. And finally, climate is already upending livelihoods, lifestyles in many parts of the world through extreme weather conditions and so on. So learning how to substitute renewable clean energy for fossil fuels, how to build community resistance and so on, is going to be imperative. Now, the point I want to make here is upskilling and reskilling, therefore, becomes a priority for most governments and global citizens. And this requires changing attitudes and beliefs and requires raising awareness and just-in-time capacity building. Now, on the other side, which was mentioned before, there's unprecedented change on technology. It's everywhere. There's a tsunami of data. AI, cognitive computing, and robotics are disrupting work. And there are 5 generations in the workforce, including millennials, that make up about 50% of the workforce. The point I wanted to make, and just before the pandemonium, I was at the Silicon Valley presenting at Microsoft, and what I was told that the Silicon Valley and other people who are hiring, they're not looking for your skills in coding or other things. The 2 critical skills they're looking for is learning agility, because the shelf life, according to the World Economic Forum, the shelf life of skills is only going to be about 4.5 years. So what the technology skills or other thematic areas is going to be constantly changing. So if you're hiring people who have the ability to learn new things, and the second important critical determinant is also the knowledge of soft skills, so that they are able to handle teamwork effectively, collaboration, communication, and so on. I just wanted to mention here, it's all of this is really an opportunity for change. And if you looked in the old economy, life existed in 3 simple blocks for all of us. You educate yourself for the first 20 or so years, then you work for another 40, and then you retire, and then lifespan was about 70 or so. Today, in the new economy, since the shelf life is only about 4.5 and people are living longer, the learning block is lifelong. I like to call it life-led, because as long as your people have at least 6 to 7 careers, Harvard is now talking, Chris Dede, who writes a lot about this, is talking about a 60-year curriculum where you're moving in and out of work and retooling and reskilling yourself. So in this picture that I've painted, where global skilling is an imperative and we need life-led learning, and I think Manish and Dr. Rahman also mentioned, the challenge is so massive that it cannot be met through face-to-face intervention. At the World Bank, where I set up the Open Learning Campus, we sort of discovered this about 15 years ago, where we had to sort of disseminate just-in-time learning and knowledge to thousands and thousands of people around the world. Technology has to be a piece of this puzzle, and this is very important. Now, at the same time, it is not our fathers' or our grandfathers' way of learning. Learning itself, due to all of the drivers that I mentioned, the notion of what is learning is also changing. It's moving from learning in one phase to continuous and life-led, as I mentioned, but also the way we approach what we think of learning. Earlier used to be a structured learning, sitting in a classroom, but today learning is informal. It has formal, of course, but a lot of learning happens informally. It's micro-learning, bite-sized, peer learning, and it's on the job, and it's even embedded in the flow of work, so that people find time to learn as they are working. Manish talked about gender, and this is a very important characteristics that technology affords us. And then, of course, you move away from the traditional lecture style to multi-channel or multimodal experiential learning and flipped classrooms, which I'll mention to you. Another critical difference, of course, is the change role for not only the teacher or the expert, but also the learner. In this context, the teacher is no longer the sage on the stage, but more the guide, facilitating and guiding learners to find the right knowledge at the right time. So teachers become more enablers and facilitators, and students are supported by digital tools. Similarly, the role of the learner too is moving away from an individualistic to more collaborate, where they interact with peers and sort of gain collective intelligence through crowdsourcing and co-creation and so on. Silos, the siloized way of learning. In today's context, particularly in the fourth industrial, everything is linked to everything else. And the job seekers who have these multi-sectoral or cross-sectoral hybrid skills are the ones most in demand. So you will see people in marketing with data science and visual design or different combinations, and academia and also skilling organization are providing these cross-sectoral skills. And because learning is so short, this skill cycle is short, under 5 years, and we need to learn continuously, naturally, we're unbundling education, the degrees, to simpler modular approaches. And the benefits, and these could be like you get a certificate after a course, you get a specialization when you do MOOCs, or even micro bachelors and micro masters, which are like Lego blocks. You take a course, you get a certificate, after sometimes you build. And this again would be useful for people, disadvantaged youth, for gender, etc., that doesn't require the time and cost to provide the upfront cost of education, but do it along the way. So in this sense, these are some of the major challenges. Now, next I will talk, in the limited time I have, about 6 EdTech innovations that are making a difference, are transforming skilling and capacity building programs around the world. We use many of them for our capacity building for clients at the bank, and I will just highlight a few of those. So here what I want to mention is that, Professor Anand Agarwal, who's the head of Harvard and MIT's edX platform, he mentioned early in the pandemonium, probably in March, that the new normal post-pandemic will be blended learning, which includes educational technology. That's the left slide of the screen. I'm not able to blow it up, unfortunately. But Anand says he expects more than 40 to 50% of academic programs and skilling programs to be online, co-mingled with in-person learning as well as on-the-job learning. Now, of course, the prerequisites are access through reliable internet, a wireless, good pedagogical design, and inflow of quality and cutting-edge learning materials. So what is blended learning? Blended learning is really a blanket umbrella statement for anything that combines best of in-person or in-person virtual and digital learning in an effective way to sustain this. And it could include real time, as I said. In COVID, we're 100% virtual, right? So, but that doesn't mean you give up on the live human interaction. So typical effective blended learning today combines real-time live sessions, whether they're face-to-face or virtual. And then you have a host of self-paced activities that learners can do at their own time, at their own pace, read, listen to videos, podcasts, etc. Then you have active learning that includes some sort of quizzes, some sort of hands-on exercises that show mastery over a skill. But in addition, we are doing virtual field visits, and so on. And then finally, there is the human element. Digital learning doesn't mean that you cut out the human element. Coaching, mentoring, as well as interaction with your peers to discuss, share, and so on. So this illustration, the continuum of technology learning, I just want to call your attention. This is really a tool to help institutions and learning designers decide where to get started with digital learning and where your programs could fit. So when we first started, remember, there was just the two extremes. You had face-to-face or you have fully online. But now with COVID and beyond, there are a number of variants that come in. There's the flipped classroom where you can bring in to prepare learners online before you come into a face-to-face, or there is a hybrid, which is a planned mix of online or face-to-face and, in many, many forms. And the high flex is something that's coming. Personally, I feel it is not, it is too huge. I mean, it's a bit resource intensive, but let's see how it evolves. The high flex is where every session of the course is offered in multiple formats to allow different sections of stakeholders to attend. So, and to seamlessly shift between attending in person, joining synchronously online, or doing the self-paced activities. So, but how do you choose between this section? Obviously, it depends on your audience profile and their needs, the preferred teaching strategy of the institution or the facilitators, the demands of their subject, as well as resources. But I do want to say that in this time, the notion of blended learning is actually evolving. So we need to be light and nimble because according to this prediction, which is kind of getting accepted globally, is post-COVID, the new normal is going to be blended. But one thing I want to say here is good teaching may overcome a poor choice of technology, but technology will never, never, never replace bad teaching. So it's important to keep that in mind, because it's just because you switch to technology. And the other thing on this slide I want to mention is that EdTech entrepreneurs and other technology providers are meeting this demand with some really excellent products, which are called integrated learning systems, or in some cases, they integrate both the learning experience platforms with learning, the LMS, the learning management system, to facilitate these types of delivery. So the next quick point, and Mr. Raman, how many minutes do I have? 3 or 4?
Yeah, you can take a couple of minutes. We'll cut it out of question time.
Okay, so sorry. So this is that slide I was showing you that came out of Harvard, MIT, that talks about after the fall. I'll quickly go through this because I've been this. And this is the continuum of learning we discussed. The second pivot that I see has a lot of potential for India and globally is break the traditional patterns of teaching and learning. Complement long modules-based lesson plans with shorter, easily digestible, bite-sized learning. This bite-sized learning, for example, like YouTube or TikTok videos and so on. And I have an example here where a teacher trainer records short lessons, sends it through WhatsApp or other app during the day, during the week, several times, with key messages, audio, video, short knowledge notes, games, and refreshers, and so on. And such lessons can be translated into local languages using AI, which I'll talk about next. And it can be on the go and so on. The point I would like to leave this slide with is microlearning can be a very effective tool, not just for hard skills, but also such as, solar roof installations or developing software for autonomous driving, medical procedures, etc., but also very, very crucial for soft skills like language learning and project management and communication and so on. And, these can be effectively implemented among low data contexts as well, embedding game components. The third pivot that Mr. Raman mentioned as well, AI is playing a key role in improving the quality. Manish talked about scale and impact of learning. In fact, if I were asked today what is the single most thing that is going to change learning, it is AI through its invisible user interface. In fact, you say AI is the new UI. That's how we're going to. We're already starting to see a lot of it proliferating. I don't mean that very soon we'll have humanoid robots acting as teachers. That may be taking some time, although I did see a show where they do have a humanoid robot teaching in a school in Bangalore. But what I'm talking about is in little ways, AI can impact the learning life cycle. So right now, for example, at the bank, we're using AI to take long reports like the World Development Report and create short content modules. So that is one, what used to take a very long time, you can use AI to do that. The other big thing around the learning cycle is it can free up teacher time. So for many of our courses now, we're using what is called a voice-based tutor bot. And so the first line of asking questions, it goes to the tutor. So in this example on the left, a company focuses on using AI-based microlearning to teach English and other skills to gig workers like cab drivers and food delivery staff. And this app really is multilingual and it's mobile, and it offers a combination of a tutor bot with live tutors to offer learning. The second one here, the example talks about how AI-based skill matching tools generates comprehensive skill profiles for youth. And so the student inserts various skills in their local language with the help of a trainer. And based on those skills, it's inserted into an app, a customized CV is generated, and then the job seeker is matched with the thing. So there are many, many roles. One of the critical roles for AI, which I personally think will revolutionize, is the ability of AI to personalize learning. So the days of one-size-fits-all learning, everybody gets the same exercises, the same content, will disappear, and AI will be able to gauge what is the skills you know and skip over that and then give you learning, including hands-on exercises based on your performance gap. This cuts down the training time by half, but it also gives confidence and the chances of greater success. I touched on this, I won't talk too much, but just because you bring digital and blended learning doesn't mean the human is out. The human is more important than ever. The role of the human teacher, even if they come virtually, if you need the scale that Manish talked about, then maybe only a smaller section come in for face-to-face. The rest is done virtually, but that includes a human teacher. So, for example, we're using tech-powered small cohort for individual learning, where there is an effective facilitator directing the learning experience. You can have counseling and coaching with instant feedback. You can support practice where a live teacher is watching and recommending and guiding, and also for peer-to-peer. And much of this technology can be seamless and transparent. I'll go on to the fifth promise. This is, again, one of the game changers. And, an interesting lesson we learned in the lockdown was that people turned more to video games than they did any other digital activity. And this is a quote from the Time magazine. So it's time to convert the power of the video games to a force for good, to boost learner engagement and overall. So in the skilling context, hands-on exercises to practice under safe conditions with guided practice. Of course, done in person is excellent, but now many of the AI is allowing you to do that. So I'll give you just very quickly one example from the pharmaceutical leader Novartis. They had to train hundreds of people on best practice production and antiseptic procedures for a leukemia treatment. And by the way, the very same thing is being done for COVID vaccination as well. They had limited labs and very little time to do it face-to-face. And so they developed a state-of-the-art VR simulation that allows learners to strap on their headsets, grab hand controllers, and step into this hyper-realistic virtual facility to practice life-saving procedure, while a mentor and a coach watches how you perform and gives you feedback. Similarly, many organizations during COVID are doing this, but even earlier, Walmart uses VR games a lot to teach management practices for their store staff, Exxon, Boeing, etc. What the power of VR is that it gives you a power of presence to step into that reality, even though it might be artificial. It tricks your brain to feeling you're actually there, and it allows you to build empathy. So VR is also good for HR-related skills and so on, is we are finding to train new managers and so on. So typical examples in a skilling environment is for VR is to expose learners to professions in the hospitality sector and other sectors, so they experience what the trials and challenges are and take action. It's to expose, nursing students or paramedicals to real life scenarios in hospitals and so on. It's to aid gig economy jobs such as driving, delivering packages, customer service, and of course, the other skills as well. Again, public speaking is a great tool. So it can be a useful resource and so on. I've just got 2 more slides. Now, as you introduce all of these tools, I think very, very upfront, it is important to think about how you will collect data to measure and improve. Data is really the new currency for learning and development. As you know, everything in the online environment is tracked, every click, every mouse move. And so this analytics gives us a very useful way to track and make decisions on learning behavior and efficacy of the learning process. So in today's data-driven, in today's digital age, these learning analytics are crucial for decision making. And really, I will say the feel-good statistics like completion metrics or evaluation, those are not as relevant in today's context. And so learning analytics gives you the tools to track learner interactions, to collect, mine, and report on data, to find performance gaps so that you can personalize the learning experience, to see how they're performing on the job so that it connects training and organizational impact. And so you can share reports of value. And how do you do it? Many of the tools, like the learning management system, already have data analytics built in. There's also some software called the LRS, Learning Record Store, that allows you to do it. So start small, collecting learning analytics on 3 things: on engagement, how are learners progressing through learning; experience, how memorable is the training and how excited are the learners to participate; and how effective is it? Has it improved outcomes, skill adoption, and so on? So finally, I will end with, there is some food for thought to address the challenges Manish mentioned, but it requires a mindset change, as Mr. Raman also mentioned. It's not about putting on a webinar with Zoom. So it's really not about usually when we adopt a new technology, we tend to do exactly what we did in a face-to-face sitting. And this is exactly what we should avoid. We should use technology in new ways to try to do new things that were not possible. And because technology brings new opportunities to learn. The other point I want to mention is that evidence-based pedagogy as well as engagement. We talked about learning analytics and so on. It's important to use a variety of instructional strategy to keep learners engaged and curious about what's coming next. Appropriate technology. Globally, this is, while innovations are happening in education during COVID and post, it's important that we don't expose people to a greater digital divide and add to their cost. I talked about human intervention. I talked about the high-touch approach through virtual facilitation. The next point is to advance learning through AI, data, and analytics. And very important, that was stressed before me, multi-stakeholder partnerships and public-private partnerships are critical. Partnering with people pursuing the similar goals to help harness and share the resources, to take advantage of each other's networks and platforms, and to strengthen dialogue. And just 2 examples here would be using the whole content, open educational resource market, and so on.
Sheila, I request you to wrap up. We are way over time.
Yes, and that's it. I mean, that would be the end to it. So wanted to leave you with these key priorities and next steps to assess your program and align to a blended strategy, design the solution and products, keeping quality in mind, training of your facilitators and also of your learners, meaning train the facilitator but provide support to learners, having a help desk, virtual help desk, so learners can turn to, and finally deliver, measure impact, learn from it, and move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. That was fascinating. Thank you so much. Before I introduce my next speaker, may I request the audience that in case you have any questions, there is a comments icon on the bottom right side. You can put your questions there. We will collate the questions. And after all the panelists have spoken, we can use those questions to the panelists. If you are asking a question to a specific panelist, please mention that as a part of your question. I now have the pleasure of introducing the second panelist, Dr. Halfteck. He's the founder and CEO of KnackApp, a graduate of Columbia University and Harvard University. He has studied behavior economics and game theory. He started KnackApp to enable youth from all socioeconomic backgrounds to reach their true career potential and secure their economic future. With that, over to you, Guy.
Thank you, Raman, and hello, everyone. I'll dive straight in, given the time constraints. So I want to show you what we do at KnackApp, and I'm sharing a picture here of what the future is actually happening. And this is a picture from India in particular. So Sheila was talking about gaming, and KnackApp is an AI gaming platform that uses neuroscience to change the future of human capital and workforce readiness, learning, and much more. I'll show you just some pictures so to give you a flavor of what it looks like. So those are young girls in rural India. You can see here young South Africans in a skill development center using our games. You can see here more pictures from India, and you can see that young woman using a mobile phone and playing our games. You can see here college students in New Delhi playing our games as part of recruiting with Tata Sons. You can see a young middle school girl in Mindanao, the Philippines. More college students in India. A young woman in Berlin, in Germany. Youth in Los Angeles, California. Young students in the Philippines. An executive in Switzerland, a young person also in India playing, and many, many more. Now, what combining all of that is the fact that we have built games that are not just like any other games. Our games, in fact, enable people to unlock their true career potential and to build their future and become skilled and capable and use their talent to do work, to build their future, to secure their economic future. So in just 30 minutes of a digital experience of playing games over a mobile phone, that's the gateway to their future. And let me show you how it looks actually more specifically. So our career platform is really designed for every person, from every walk of life, from every socioeconomic, for every age and culture. And the reason it's possible is because we've built games. And those games are very smart games that, in fact, won us many awards, which I will show you. Now, the games are short. Every game is 10 minutes. So we have this game, for example, where you manage a restaurant. But don't let this kind of make you think that this is about working in a restaurant. It's not at all. This game goes very deep to understand the skills, the mindsets, the abilities, the competencies, the aptitudes of that person that plays the game. Another game is designed to identify people with potential for science, technology, innovation, and leadership. A third game is using fire, balloons, water, and much more. And a fourth game is a puzzle game where you need to get the blue robot and the red robot to meet in space. So those games are very short. They are fantastic and engaging and visually delightful. And after a person plays the game, they can get personalized career counseling. So the whole games are leading the person to get personalized insight, personalized feedback, personalized career counseling about their college directions, their skilling pathways, their career choices, and their digital careers. So it is very simple, and it's available instantly. You can see that our users come from every background, professionals, educated, less educated, skilled, the unskilled, rural, urban, and many more. In addition to getting your career counseling, you can also identify your top strengths and your top skills. So your X factor skills, your leadership skills, your people and collaboration skills, as well as your future skills. And by unlocking your skills, you're able also to control how employers can find you and discover you on the platform. So instead of going by credentials, which is how the market used to work, we're making it possible for people to show their talent, their skills, their competencies, and their potential for success in the future. So it's not about credentials, but it's about what you could do in the future and how you could contribute and do things that are useful and valuable. Once you've gotten your skills and all your personalized guidance, you can join channels. And channels is the new way to get into skill development and into education, into learning, and into the workforce. Channels enable you to get discovered and get connected, basis your skills, basis your talent. So it is hyper-personalized. It is all driven by artificial intelligence, game design, games theory, and neuroscience. Now, as I mentioned, our platform has won many awards and recognition. I'll just show you that on our website, we have many case studies and research. The World Economic Forum and Harvard University described KnackApp as a breakthrough technology for inclusive growth. The Gates Foundation recently published this report about unlocking career potential and discussed what KnackApp is doing. USAID, the agency of the US government, discussed KnackApp in detail in terms of making it available for international youth development programs. There are additional white papers, academic papers, and much, much more. I'll just close with one last bit of information, and you're all welcome to check the website. Those two data charts are very, very important because they really crystallize the future. On the left hand, you can see here green dots and black dots. And what we're plotting here is potential for success in science, technology, innovation, engineering. And here we're plotting the learning agility. What you see here is that the green dots are disadvantaged youth in India. Those are youth that did not finish high school. They are not economically or socially empowered to pursue their dreams, careers, and potential. And the black dots are students in elite European universities. When we look at the potential of people in India, disadvantaged youth in India, and those that are in elite European colleges, we see actually that the Indian youth potential is actually stronger on the upper right quadrant here than that of elite Europeans. When we look on the right side, we see the same type of plot, but here we're looking at entrepreneurship potential. And we see that the red dots represent the young disadvantaged youth in India. So when you look at the potential, it's really about identifying people wherever they are. They might be in a village or in a city or in a town. They might be in a top college or not at all, not even in high school, but we're enabling to the market and the world and companies and skill development organizations to find those people, to train them, to skill them in the most personalized fashion, basis their skills, capabilities, potential for success in the future. So those pictures that I started showing you, those are to us, those are the pictures that show the future of reaching people and enabling them to get the skills in a personalized fashion, remotely, over digital, over mobile, and build their human capital for the future in the most scalable, yet smart and personalized way possible. I'll pause here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Guy. That is fascinating. A great company that you run, and I loved your Indian examples.
Thank
to
you.
all the attendees, if you have any questions to ask, please look at the bottom right side on the comments icon and put your questions there. We'll take it up after all the panelists have spoken. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce Gerry Hanley, who's at the California State University, Long Beach. He's the executive director of 2 open online libraries that provide free access to educational teaching and learning materials to everyone with internet access. Skillscommons.org is the open library for workforce development training resources, and Malad.org is the open library for academic educational resources. Welcome, Gerry.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and it's an honor to be part of this wonderful panel. And I just want to reinforce all the points that our previous speakers have made are just outstanding. And hopefully some of the comments I'll make today will be reinforcing some important points that they've already made. And when you're looking around strengthening India's capacity to transform workforce development and scale, as Dr. Roy had talked about, is really essential here. And I think just this, Dr. Halfteck and I haven't talked beforehand, but I think the point I have here is people's capabilities are distributed equally around the world, but opportunity is not. And his last graphs that he showed that whether you're in an advantaged environment or a disadvantaged environment, the skill of people is there. And our job is to look at how education, being the most powerful social economic change agent in the world, can create opportunities to develop these capabilities. And whether it's with your KnackApp or whether it's the technology services that the National Skills Development Corporation is doing, these are all essential to enable these achievements to occur. And what I'm going to highlight today is around there's a set of educational resources that are available, open educational resources that have a promise to empower the teaching and the learning for all. And so these free resources are available for you. And this is where our partnership with the National Skills Development Corporation is really just an honor to work with you. And Skills Commons is a free and open library. Anyone with internet access can go. And let me just give you a little history about this. In the US, the United States Department of Labor invested almost $2 billion to support development of innovative workforce development training materials and practices that can help transform the way workforce development goes. And that little diagram on the right-hand side, it looks like a pie chart, that tells you, gives you a little visual of whether it's in manufacturing or whether it's in IT or healthcare or construction, or it's within educational services or with its agriculture. So the whole range of types of workforce training that's going to be essential for the economy is really important. And important elements about these resources as being open educational resources, you are free to download these materials. You are free to revise these materials, to customize them for your local needs. And I think that's an important element about open educational resources, is that it enables at scale your ability to customize it for the needs of those various communities. Whether you're in Uttar Pradesh or you're in New Delhi, whether you're in agriculture or whether you're in IT, you're going to need to enable your training organization, your local training organization, to take those materials and make it their own and ease the burden of that development to revision. So this is important about open educational resources. And the way these were developed, when these $2 billion were funded as a huge grant across 700 community colleges throughout the US, they made sure that the content was aligned with employers' partners. And I think this is a critical element. And I think the points that were made by Dr. Jagannathan, and I apologize for mispronouncing your name, and Dr. Halfteck, is how do you connect the skills that are important for employment? And if we don't do a better job of aligning that, we're not going to really prepare our students to become effective employees. And looking at accelerating the learning strategies, these are all guidelines that were used to create these resources that are in this library, and an important element to make sure what you're teaching actually gets integrated into work-based learning, into on-the-job training, internships, apprenticeships. So the issue about hybrid and blended learning that takes the digital resources and the engagement as well as the hands-on is going to continue to be important. So these resources that were created by educators in all different disciplines are now available. And I did a little screenshot here if you wanted to know about in healthcare and nursing practices. So here are files that a training organization within India or an individual wanting to learn skills, because it's free and open for everyone, they have access to those resources. And we've organized them in ways to make it easy to say, oh, I'm interested. I'm going into agriculture, manufacturing, carpeting, IT, healthcare. What are these important sets of skills that will help me prepare for these areas? And I think an important element that Dr. Jagannathan, and I again apologize for the mispronunciation, is that connecting the digital learning with the experiential learning in an apprenticeship model is how you begin to take general skills and customize them for the unique opportunities for employment where that person is living. And what Skills Commons has, they have all these resources. So if you want to have an apprenticeship program about HVAC, we have those guidelines to help you develop those effective apprenticeship programs. Again, all these are free and open resources for you to adopt. Now, effective learning is can be enhanced by technology in a variety of ways. But if you do not prepare your industry expert to also become an expert instructor, you're going to really not be able to scale at the size that's going to be important. Not only do you have 20 million learners that are necessary to reskill, but you're going to need 2 million teachers to become more effective, and industry experts are going to have to take on that role. So we have tools to help industry experts to become expert instructors, free modules, tutorials to help them on. We have tools to help how do you align industry workforce with workforce programs, supporting students in the learning process. So just to highlight, all these resources are free and available. And already, since Skills Commons has already had over 30,000 visits from India, and with the NSDC's portal, we're working with them to select the quality resources to make it easy for you to find those, and whether you're workforce development trainers and workers, and wrong way, and an important another element that was brought up was around how do you begin to curate materials for your priorities. And so this is a simple thing where we've put together a collection of materials focused on the supporting employment equity for women in India, and looking at what are when women are going into non-traditional areas, what are the type of skills and guidance and mindset that's important to help them be successful. So hopefully I provided you a quick overview of a free and open resource that provides a wide range of opportunities that helps you build the capacity of your local workforce development. And we're very excited about continuing to partnership with the National Skills Development Corporation. So with that, I'll pass it back to our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gerry. Now it is my pleasure to invite Michael Curry. Mike is the founder and CEO of British Council's new mobile English test, EnglishScore. You're a big hit in India, Mike, as you might know, which is becoming a global test and certificate of English for employability. He's also an investor and board member of two further online education businesses that focus on professional and digital skills and he's an advisor to the Rajasthan Royals Education Academy. Welcome, Michael.
Well, thank you so much, and I hope you can all see the slides. Good evening, all, and thank you so much to NSDC for inviting me to join such an esteemed group. I can see we're running a little over time, but my promise to those who are listening is if I've only got 3 slides, and if you wait until the 3rd slide, there's $250 in it for you. So please hang on, hold on to your seats. Wow. Okay, so I'm just going to introduce EnglishScore. So it's the Global Test and Certificate of English for Employability. I'm hoping that those slides are going to come up on the main view. I'm just checking. Is that live? Can we see those? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, and so it's global. It's already available in over 150 countries, and just in 2020 alone, we conducted over 1 million tests. It's focused on employability, so that means from school leavers through higher education to job seekers and those looking to progress at work. So at the heart of the test, at the heart is this free mobile test. It's available on any Android or Apple phone. The test takes just 30 minutes, and it gives a score that indicates your level from beginner to advanced. And importantly, this score aligns to a global standard, which is recognized around the world. The app is free, the test is free, and the result is free. Moving on, really importantly, if the user wants to, they can purchase a secure certificate to show to an employer or to add to their CV or LinkedIn profile. Now, we can do that because we've embedded a number of security features into the test. I'm not going to mention them all, but for example, the test questions are different each time, so you can't anticipate the answers. And we use the front-facing camera to monitor the test taker. So we've got a test, a certificate, and over on the right-hand side, we have a dashboard that could be used by employers or educators. So employers can use a test for recruitment screening or to assess their existing staff for training and development initiatives. Equally, educators can use the test to assess their students and to get them ready for the workplace. So that's just a quick introduction. You can see already on the right-hand side, there's a few names in different industries that we're already working with in India. So this next bit here, I just wanted to pick out here how we're thinking differently. And the short version is that I want to continuously find ways to replace traditional costs. And in that way, we can be massively scalable and we can invent new paradigms. And I just reflect here for a moment on almost traditional assessment or traditional examinations. I took an English exam back in 2019. I booked it 5 weeks in advance. I was at the exam center from 8 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It cost me $200. And I know that 2/3 of that cost went on the physical costs, such as booking, the exam center, and vigilation. So only 1/3 of that $200 went towards the design of the test, the items, and the assessment costs. So I'm looking to sort of change that paradigm. So I'm looking to cut out costs wherever I can. So over on the left-hand side, starting with distribution costs, all of my distribution is through the mobile internet. So I can reach 150 countries. Actually, I think it's 170 countries now. And it costs me around 20 cents, 20 US cents to acquire a customer. So very, very different economics. Then I look at the middle section there. As I mentioned earlier, we build the security features into the app. So my invigilation costs are very low. I try to keep them sort of practically zero. People mentioned AI. I'm using AI in there. And then over on the right-hand side, my marking costs. Again, obviously, we use artificial intelligence to do the marking, but actually also something that certainly sort of I get very excited about week to week is that we're now experimenting with peer marking, where we can get our millions of users to rate the speaking and writing of others. And I'm really excited about the potential of that. And so this is just my theme. I just thought I'd introduce one theme here, which is continuously removing the costs to create new opportunities, scale and new paradigm opportunities. And if I think about sort of my vision for the future of assessment, not just English assessment, but about other types of assessment exams, I think about it as embedded assessment. So I think we're used to this sort of concept of having to go for an exam. It's quite this sort of intimidating concept. It lasts a while. You have to go to a center. There's lots of invigilation. You do your test, you get marked, you get the results back a bit later. I think that's going to be old school. I think if we can do things like this and bring the cost rate down and the accessibility right up, I think we can change the way we think about assessment. For example, I mean, I can embed this assessment into someone's course. They could run this assessment 3 times over at very little cost at the beginning, in the middle, at the end. And I think sort of there'll be very little disruption to the way that the learner experience works. I can keep the cost low, and I can actually sort of get multiple different checkpoints throughout the journey. So these are sort of, I see these types of technology approaches changing the way that we approach assessment in the future. Okay, so actually, I was just asked to say, well, how might the recipients, how might the attendees of this webinar be able to benefit from this technology? And here's my $250. So actually, we mentioned the dashboard earlier, and we're making that account free to sign up for authorized universities and colleges, also for training providers. I don't know if you have any big employers on this webinar, but also as an employer, either a recruiter or an L&D function, you can sign up for an account for free. And in India, during February, anyone who signs up, we're also adding $250 worth of credit to their account. So if you want to do that, if you're an educator or an employer, just go to the website. You'll find the right link, and you can sign up for an account. I'm also aware that we've got the 37 sector skills councils. I actually find it difficult to keep count of the sector skills councils, but I think there's 37. And so what can we do with the sector skills councils? Well, actually, we have a partnership with NSDC. We're really enjoying that partnership, and we're making the test and the certificates available through to their end users and through to the training providers. We've actually also worked with NASCOM in the past through their Future Skills Initiative. But I want to say I'm up for helping you and I'd be delighted to help you make this tool available to your industries. So any of you with sector skills councils, if you think this would be useful for you, I'm up for trying to help to make this available. And we can explore together, for example, sponsoring a large number of certificates for your students or workforces, or creating a subsidized tariff for your employers and educators. So if that would be useful for you, it may be more useful for some industries than others, then contact me and we'll set up a call. In fact, I think that's me, actually. I'm done. I thought I'd rush through that quite quickly.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much for rushing through. We are at 7:47, so we are 2 minutes over time, but we started 6 minutes late. So I'm going to be able to take 3-4 minutes extra with the permission of all my co-panelists and all the participants. We do have some questions, and I'll nobody's been named as a panelist to answer that. So I'll throw it at all my panelists and have them pick up as they take it. Chandar Arya, who's the co-founder of Webicom from Canada, is saying he has a question around online live training. He's asking, what's the scope of online live training, particularly in skill development sector, considering all types of training, including RPL? Would any one of you like to take that? What is the scope of online live training? Sheila, Guy, Gerry, Michael, anybody want to pick that up? Okay, Sheila, go ahead.
I promise to keep it brief. Tremendous scope, right? Because we said that all of the disadvantages of digital learning 1.0 can be resolved through the human intervention. So there is a lot of scope. The key is don't stop with live, blend it with on demand, blend it with the other tools, but there is tremendous scope.
Right, and I would tend to agree. The scope of live training, actually, where we are able to ensure that the student is in front and doing live training, that is going to be critical of which way we use the machine learning and AI into the future. Pratish Behera has a question. How important would be social competencies in future of vocational education and training? Social competencies. Okay, go
I
ahead.
can jump on for a quick comment. I think
Yeah, sure. Sheila, you add on to what he has to say. I saw your hand also go up. Go ahead.
I think that because of the dynamic nature of expertise that's going to be developing over time, expertise is going to reside in industry, and therefore teaching and learning is going to have to be embedded within someone's continuous life. And so your ability to communicate with your coworkers, your managers, your supervisors, your clients, those skills are going to be essential for your ability to capture expertise that exists in the field and employ it and then share it with your coworkers, because having one person who knows something is insufficient to enable that expertise to have an impact. So your communication skills are going to be essential. And higher education is going to have to figure out how do they enable that dynamic, because of the rapid changing of the skills required. How are they going to keep pace with creating these resources and their own trainer, their own faculty to enable those skills? So they're going to have to be able to communicate more effectively too as well.
Okay, Sheila, you want to add to that very briefly?
Yes,
Because I want to squeeze in one or two more questions.
Sure. I mean, it's critical in the fourth industrial revolution with the machines taking on and living in a man-machine world. Social skills are imperative. And as I mentioned earlier, survival skills in 21st century are social skills, technical skills, and basic digital skills. So hugely important.
So from the social skills, Sanjeev Gupta has an interesting question, which takes it from the trainee to the trainer. He's saying, what are the new opportunities in the new age of EdTech for the training providers? Guy, Gerry, Michael, anybody wants to take the opportunities, or even Manish, opportunities for the training providers?
Just again, I'll be quick. I think, and this is a point that Sheila made, was around flipping the classroom, in a sense, understanding what can be learned outside of the classroom, independently at self-pace, as to what needs to be acquired face-to-face is essential. And in the past, trainers have always thought, I got to bring people into the physical facilities and run it. But I think you can really create tremendous efficiencies and optimization and lower the cost of training by looking at how you blend online and face-to-face.
Absolutely. Blending is critical. So the last question, purely because we are out of time, there are a bunch of other questions, but I'll take the last question that says, are solutions adopted by various organizations and countries to transition online under the new normal, are they scalable and efficient? Sheila, you referred to that in your presentation also. Would you like to give a specific answer to scalable and efficient?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole value of the EdTech intervention. What we used to do in person for 50-person class or 30 people class, now you could really scale it over geographies, over stakeholders, over different languages, and so on. So that is the beauty. The part to understand is that when you go digital, your upfront investment costs are a bit high, because you're codifying the pedagogy, you're codifying the knowledge of an instructor into a program, into a learning module. So there, the upfront investment costs are high. But once you have that invested, rolling it out to thousands and thousands. For example, we just rolled out the World Development Report on supply chain at the World Bank, and we had 150,000 people from 190 countries attend. Now, if we were to do it face to face, can you imagine? We just couldn't do it face to face. Probably take 10 years. So the point is that the intervention of technology allows scale, improvement of quality, and greater learner engagement. There are studies to show today. Earlier, there was this idea of no significant. First, initially they said, oh, online is inferior. Then a few years later, they said, well, online and face-to-face, no significant difference. Today, the studies are proving that in certain areas, online is even better than face-to-face. I'll stop there.
Michael, you wanted to add something. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think actually in that question, I think, is it scalable? Look, absolutely it's scalable. And as Sheila said, that's the sort of almost the whole raison d'etre for it. I think it's a really good question. Is it efficient? Or maybe if I take that to, is it effective? And I just have this little, this case study in mind. About 12 years ago, we bought a business. We're doing professional qualifications online, sort of 6-month qualifications. And we were, all of those were self-study, self-paced, super flexible. It sounded like exactly what people wanted. But we were measuring those and we were achieving about a 35% completion and success rate, nowhere near what we wanted it to be. We refined the content was great, the sort of didactic format, that it was easy to use, but still we were only achieving a 35% completion rate. And we worked on that and we worked on that, and we got a couple of breakthroughs. Actually, in particular, blended learning, batching people up into cohorts, grouping people together into small groups of 6 or 8 to work together, giving people experiential learning, chances to practice, and also sort of putting people into a live class every week. And within the space of, I think, 3 months, we moved from a 35% completion rate to an 85% completion rate. So almost my point here is, yes, it's scalable, but actually what you want to do is get the design right. And in fact, actually, I think Sheila had some great principles, and I'm sure also on the Skills Commons Resource Center, I'm sure there's some great guidelines there. My advice maybe to the learning providers is, yes, embrace digital learning, but do take the lessons of best practice in digital learning design, because there's a very big difference between just the first thing you bang out and something that really works effectively to teach your students.
Yeah, that's right. Well, folks, we could go on and on. We are 12 minutes over time. So we doubled the 6-minute delay that we started with. Sheila, Guy, Gerry, Michael, thank you very much. I can tell you I learned a lot. Thank you for being so generous with sharing your thoughts and your learnings and what you're doing and where we can take this. With that, let me hand this back to Jobin. Jobin Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roy. Thank you so much. It was indeed a great learning experience. I'm sure you all, including our participants, enjoyed the session. On behalf of NSDC, I would like to thank all our esteemed speakers for enlightening us today. And thank you very specially to all the participants for joining us today for this webinar. And we really appreciate your participation and the questions you shared. Hope to see you again for another round of such enlightening webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.